I am standing on the eastern embankment of the Kosi barrage on the Nepal side. There is the western embankment on the Nepal side, also to the south of the barrage, and onward in India the barrage extends. There is an incredible process that is in a way natural, in a way that is man-made, created by the fact that a river that carries the highest level of sediment in the world, it is said, is constricted now within embankments. So the river has deposited the silt it brings from the high Himalaya to the mid hills of Nepal to the Chure Shivalik of Nepal. It deposits it within the embankment. The silt laden loess that used to spread across northern Bihar, the Gangetic plains and the plains of the Tarai plains of Nepal, silt all gets constricted. Whatever is left that doesn't settle down flows away. The Kosi river has what is called an internal inland delta, and since historical time the silt has come from the mountains and settled in the plains, which is in a way why the plains are so fertile, which is why the plains are so populated. But in the modern era, when we only think of keep putting up embankments and trying to save populated clusters rather than live with the flood, which was the ancient way till very recently, we make embankments, we create structures that were essentially taught us by European engineers who knew the morphology, the flowing pattern, the content carried by European rivers and North American rivers. But we brought that from British time into the time of post-colonial India. So when Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru was talking about dams as the temples of modern India, he was also talking about barrages. Barrages that constrict the flow and divert the flow. Altogether, what the barrages, dams and embankments never considered was the matter of silt carried by Himalayan rivers or rivers originating in the Himalaya. There is a dangerous phenomena that got started the moment the Kosi project was begun in 1954, ended in 1964. Embankments were made during that time, and the river, which used to flow 100 kilometers to the east, now is constricted here in the western edge of its flowing pattern. Whereas historically it would build up the silt and then change course, move to another channel, change course, another channel, and there was a fan that would move in and out over the course of decades. Instead, you have constricted the flow of the river that carries the highest proportion of silt and sand in the world, comparable to some of the rivers of China, such as the Huanghe. This is technological audacity put in place in the 1950s. We continue to live on a dangerous platform here where I stand. What do we have? We have the Kosi river essentially now flowing on a plateau. To my left is the Kosi river and its base. To my right is the village of Kusaha and the plains of the North Gangetic plains, which extends to Bihar from the Tarai of Nepal. You can actually see with your eyes when you look from left to right that this area is 3 to 4 meters higher than this side, which is why I say that the river now flows on a plateau with this embankment which is higher on this side and another embankment on the other side. The Kosi river provided us all in Nepal and India with a warning, a mild warning so to speak, on the 18th of August 2008 when there was a breach of the Kosi embankment at this very point. But that was a year that the Kosi was not in flood at that point and the flow was low, and yet a whole kilometer of the embankment washed away and the river's main flow which is called a Bhangalo in Nepali. The entire flow went this way, causing havoc and death and destruction across a short stretch, that is Nepal, and deep into Bihar. If there were to be a cloudburst in the mountains or a glacial lake outburst flood, and a massive flow comes and there is a breach, and it happens at the time of peak flood, as it would normally if it were to breach. The level of devastation in human and material term possibly cannot be calculated, and yet we are sitting today without concern. All we know how to do is do patchwork. Like when the breach happened, it was blocked within 4 or 5 months, and we have gone back to our life as usual without worrying about the fact that the silt continues to come within. The level of the riverbed here continues to rise, and every year inches and inches of silt is added. So what is the answer to make sure that such a eventuality doesn't happen? I am sorry to say there is no discussion. There is only one easy way out that the politicians in Bihar in particular and in New Delhi know what to say. Oh, we have the Kosi High Dam idea. But the problem with the Kosi High Dam idea is, will it really work to stop the floods in Bihar and West Bengal? Number one. Number two, is a high dam the answer, given that if there is so much silt that is deposited in this 13 kilometer wide stretch within the embankment, when it is all kept in a gorge at the point where the high dam is proposed, which is at a point north of Chatra, it's a gorge where the Kosi debouches into the plains. This is a narrow place. So in that narrow 2 kilometer stretch or even less, how much silt will be collected every year? What will be the life of such a high dam? And besides, what is the science of flood prevention if you have a high dam which is full of water? It doesn't prevent any floods. You need to keep it empty. So the much ballyhooed promise of hydropower cannot fructify because the barrage has to be left empty. And then the way Indian engineers and social scientists speak and politicians speak so easily about the Kosi High Dam, have they considered the demography and the economy of the hills of Nepal to try out an experiment that could at best work for 20, 30, 40 years, but to create existential crisis in eastern Nepal? Because the Kosi river actually encompasses almost half of the country, definitely most of East Nepal, all the way from the area north of Kathmandu to the eastern boundary of Nepal with Sikkim and Darjeeling. This entire area will be affected by a Kosi High Dam, yet the discussion is only anecdotal, and it is almost as if we will link it to the river linking in India. We will bring dams and canals to these points in Nepal as if Nepal did not have its own point of view. But the sad fact is, Nepal has not developed his own point of view as well. There are some scholars that have done deep work and study, but that is not yet part of the national discourse, much less a South Asian discourse. There needs to be a rethink where we must say, think of the Kosi High Dam as only one of many possibilities. Another is keeping the level low by utilizing the sand, but the volume is so high that that may not even be feasible. But that sand ultimately will collect up in the north of the presumptive high dam in any case. Another idea is, can you not channel the Kosi along the river courses of the earlier channels that did exist? This would require politics as politics should be done, where politicians do not look at quick fixes, where they just get into a kind of conspiracy with contractors only to keep this embankment of the Kosi maintained, because there are crores and crores of money to be made, and that is why only the embankment, until such time the Kosi breaches in such a way, the answer is a Kosi High Dam. This is a too simplistic method of running a society, where our responsibility is not only to our people of our lifetime, but people way into the future who will live in the North Gangetic Plain. We are riding a tiger, a very dangerous tiger, on the Kosi internal delta right now, because the Kosi internal delta is no longer an internal delta, because the Kosi has been now straitjacketed in its western extent between two embankments, and the things become dangerous by the year. The Kosi Mata, she already gave us a warning signal in 2008 August, but it's already 12 years since, and the discourse has not progressed. So this is my personal attempt to hope to spark a discourse where there are scholars who know better, there are activists who know better, but they are not being heard as yet. There used to be a very strong activism out of Bihar that challenged the concept of embankments, that challenged the concept of high dams, but yet that energetic campaign seems to have not got the impact from the policymakers and the politicians and the bureaucrats and the contractors and the engineers. Let us hope that in the days ahead we will look back at the Kosi warning and do something about it. From the eastern embankment, at the point where the Kosi breached the embankment in Kusaha, Nepal, this is the message from the Kosi I seek to bring to you, the viewers, in Nepal, in India, and across South Asia. Thank you.